Hello, my name is Jennifer, but I go by Jen. I consist of many identities. I am female, I'm white, I'm somewhere in the middle class, I'm in my 20s, I'm a student, I'm German, American, and I'm also dyslexic. All my identities interact with each other, and this is something called intersectionality. But that's something for another day. The identity I decided to focus on today was me being dyslexic. Before I get to myself, there are some stigmas that I want to address. There are many ways that dyslexia can display itself. There aren't set categories. One person with dyslexia might be completely different from another person. Dyslexia is the most common learning disability. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimate that about 15% of the population has dyslexia. Dyslexia has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence. It's issues with processing parts of language. Many people who are dyslexic tend to be pulled towards the math and science areas of school more than any other subject. This is because people with dyslexia tend to think more abstractly. Dyslexia is something that you can't grow out of. Instead, we learn strategies on how to deal with it. For example, my mom would work with me after school and during the summer to practice reading and writing. She would sit with me for endless hours trying to explain English grammar and give me different ways to learn it through pictures, equations, and rhyming tools. Although I didn't realize I was dyslexic until a few years ago, there were many signs throughout my life. I began reading and writing when I was around 3. I don't really have an inner voice. Instead, I tend to think more in images. It's difficult to explain what's going on in my head. I have all these thoughts, but I lack the words to explain them, which can be extremely frustrating. I also get daily headaches, but it depends how much reading I do during the day. Essays and standardized tests were also a struggle for me, and I would take a lot more time than my peers in order to complete it. I wasn't the one to figure out I was dyslexic. Instead, it was the people around me. It was something that I was ashamed of at first, because it made me feel stupid. It wasn't until I realized that many other people out there have it and have been successful. For example, Picasso, Einstein, and Steven Spielberg. By becoming a teacher, I think I will be able to help the students who come into my classroom who may think a bit differently than their peers. I will understand where they're coming from and be able to think of more creative ways to assess them to display their knowledge. It also gives me perspective on students who are learning English as another language and some difficulties they might encounter. About 70 to 85% of children who are placed in special education for language disabilities are dyslexic. I want to make sure children are not just being labeled as special needs, which can have an impact on them. I hope I will be able to work with the students in my class and build up their confidence. I want to be able to find resources that make the students' academic career easier, such as a text-to-speech app, different ways of displaying my lesson, and so on. I want to make sure that each student feels valued and needed within my class. I can do this by showing different role models in science and by fairly assessing them to their needs. Ultimately, I want my classroom to be a place where students feel safe to be themselves.